So, without further ado, let me welcome once again, and thank you very much, AGBA Dele Ogun, for the quality and quantity of time you continue to give to support this program. It's over to you, AGBA Dele Ogun. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone. By way of introduction, Dele Ogun is my name. I'm a corporate lawyer in the United Kingdom. I was born at home, but I've been living in the UK for many, many years now, studying the systems. I am, as well as a lawyer, I am a publisher. I'm the owner of Lawless Publications Limited. I'm an author of several books, but more relevantly, the history of Nigeria titled A Fatherless People, the secret story of how the Nigerians missed the road to the promised land, which forms the backdrop to much of what I'll be discussing today. The paper I've been asked to address is the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable, yes or no. And as a subtext to address the 1999 Constitution, its strengths and its weaknesses, and the future of Nigeria. Let me start with the unity of Nigeria. I think it's very important for us to understand the concept before we launch into the discussion. But I should tell you straight, right up front, that the answer to the question, is the unity of Nigeria negotiable, yes or no? My answer is that it is going to be a very, very strange African who will say that the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. No self-respecting African will allow those words to come out of their mouth. And by the time I finish my presentation, I think you'll understand why. Let's start with the unity of Nigeria. What is it? Where did it come from? Did it come from Nigerians? As I explained in my book, the unity of Nigeria, the Nigerian construct, was a British project. It involved the tossing into a sack of unity of more than 371 distinct ethnic groups that had their history, that had their leaders, they had their structures of governance, which was working for them. It was working for them because, were that not the case, the British wouldn't have come in the first instance. So it was a British design to create Nigeria by fusing or attempting to fuse these 371 ethnic groups to form an entity which they named Nigeria. Nigerians did not name it Nigeria. Nigerians did not make Nigeria, neither did they name it. It was made in Britain. So that was 1900, the beginning of the project, and they created two Nigerias to begin with. This is why I want you to understand this unity concept. To begin with, they created two Nigerias, Southern Nigeria and Northern Nigeria, as separate countries. In our chronology, we're at 1900, 1st of January 1900. We then moved to 1914, 1st of January 1914. The British made the decision to fuse the two Nigerias, to join them up into one Nigeria. This is the second stage of Project the Unity of Nigeria. So the two became nominally one. The next phase I'm going to roll forward to 1954. What happened then? This was the first challenge to the unity of Nigeria, which was when the northern political leaders were declaring secession. AGBA, they called it. It is ironic that the same people, or some of them at least, who are now saying that it's not negotiable, were the first to seek to renegotiate it by declaring that they were leaving. That was 1954. Then we come to 1966 and the pogroms. But before that, the coup of 15th of January, 1966, which led to the promulgation of the Unification Decree. So this is our next stage in the unification exercise, the Unification Decree of 1966, which dismantled the free region structure and substituted what was supposed to be a unified and united Nigeria. This was a continuation of the British project, but now by local agents. But it's the same project that we're talking about. From there, we go to 1967, the Aburi Accord. At this stage, the Igbos, the Biafrans, are seeking to leave Project Unified Nigeria. Negotiations take place. It is negotiated. Those that say it's not negotiable, there was a negotiation as to the basis of unity. And an agreement was reached. But as Ojukwu said himself in an interview, the Nigerians had agreed or had come to an agreement at Aburi as to the basis of continued coexistence. There had been give and take, there had been negotiation, but it was ambassadors in Lagos, by which he meant British and Americans in unison, interfered, and Aburi was reneged upon. The next stage in the Project Unity and preserving the unity was, of course, the Biafra War, 1967 to 1970, which cost millions of the lives of our people. From there, we then get to the 1979 Constitution. Now, I use the word constitution, I laid emphasis on it, because I want you to understand the meaning of the word constitution in its true sense. The mere fact that a document is called a constitution does not make it a constitution in the strict sense, because a constitution is an instrument that is drawn up by peoples for their own governance, is drawn up by the people and the representatives of the people who are to be governed by that instrument. Anything else may well be rules of conduct, may well be rules of governance or rules of captivity, but not necessarily a constitution. So we then have the 1979 Constitution, which was designed with the Igbo attempt to leave in mind, reimposing the unitary arrangement that the British originated. And then that was followed by the 1999 Constitution, which we'll come to in more detail. But that was in response to the Yoruba challenge following the June 12th crisis. Let me now come to the idea of negotiability. Is it negotiable? Well, as I said in my opening, unless Africans are beginning to treat and accept the British as their gods, then it is and must always be negotiable. It's like saying that what God has joined together, no man put asunder. Are the British now your gods? That it is not negotiable? That what the British put together cannot be negotiated by self-respecting Africans? This is why I say that no self-respecting African will say it is not negotiable. The only issue is, how will it be negotiated? It will be done either without war, if we're sensible, or it will be done after war, if we're stupid. And I hope that we Africans learn from the lessons of history, that where there's an opportunity to sit down and jaw, it is much to be preferred to war, because nobody can say where such war will end. Let me now come to the 1999 Constitution and why I say it is not a constitution. You see, as a lawyer, we're responsible for drafting legal documents. And if, let's say, 5 clients come into my office, they're friends, they want to do business together. They have an idea of what they wish to achieve. And they will tell me how they wish to do business together. Who gets what? In what circumstances anyone can leave? And if they leave, what will be the terms of departure? It is a negotiated document, which the lawyer simply then sits down and captures the objective of the participants and produces a legal document, which will then be given a name. It is not the name that defines the substance of that document. Its substance is its substance. It is an agreement. It is consensual. They came together through compromises and negotiations. They reached something that was satisfactory for their objective. That is how contracts and agreements are made. That is how constitutions are made. Representatives of the people come together, negotiations and trade-offs, and at the end of the exercise, a document emerges, which they sign up to through their representatives, and it becomes their constitution. What a constitution legitimizes government. This is what people need to understand by way of civic education. It is what confers legitimacy on government. Legitimacy requires knowledge of the author of the document. The 1999 Constitution, nobody knows who the author of that document is. Where was it drawn up? Who drew it up? When was it drawn up? So how can it be a constitution in its true sense? When the Americans drew up their constitution, and I would like to think we Africans want to emulate best practice. Otherwise, why talk about constitution? You might as well say you don't have a constitution. It's a dictatorship. They had their convention. And we know that there were 55 delegates on a roving basis, 55 delegates at that constitutional convention. We know it took place in Philadelphia. We know where, we know who. The 1999 documents, what do we know about it? It was just produced. And if you don't know who the author is, how do you know it wasn't authored by the British? And yet you want to die on that constitution and say it's non-negotiable? There's a concept in law, and the lawyers on the platform will understand it. The fraud unravels all. So when I'm asked, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the 1999 document? Once we've established that the declaration, we the people, in fact, literally what it says, we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible and indissoluble sovereign nation. There was no resolution by the people, let alone a firm and solemn one. There was no commitment to live and continue the British Project Unity. There was no agreement that it should be indivisible and indissoluble. It is a fraud, and fraud taints, unravels everything. Erelu, those are my opening comments. I'll be happy to comment again later on.
Let me go straight on to the only person that will be left to mop up the whole session, and that is the keynote guest speaker of today. Over to you. It's over to you now.
Dele Ogun. Yes, Erelu, thank you very much again, and thank you everybody for your contributions. It's been an excellent discussion. I just wish to make some brief points. Let me answer the questions that were posed first. Is the 1999 Constitution a builder or a destroyer? The short answer, it is that it is a destroyer. It disempowers our people. It disempowers our nations. It disempowers our heritage. So it is a destroyer. Will the 2023 elections derail this project? Only if we are foolish enough to allow it to do so. 2023, they need us to legitimize their occupation of the National Assembly. I used the expression, Turkey's voting for Christmas recently. They wheel us out every 4 years, come and give us the legitimacy. And we roll up and give them the legitimacy. The 2023 elections, we should withhold it. And then the two causes come together until we get a proper constitution, which is a genuine reflection of the will of the people. There should be no engagement in the electoral carnival. Let me throw in a point very quickly, because it often comes up, and this is the value of this platform. It is educational. And as Erelu rightly says, education and learning and understanding must precede meaningful action. If you don't get our people to understand the issues and see it the right way, the actions may well be counterproductive. So you cannot skip this education process. So it's often mentioned that the British have no written constitution. They do. They're not an oral society. What people confuse for an unwritten constitution is a constitution which has not been consolidated. Lawyers know about consolidated legislation, but that's not to say that the constitution is not written. You only have to Google the Treaty of Union, 1707. You see the equivalent documents between the Scottish and the English, whereby the Union was formed. My good friend, Kaide Okenla, and professional colleague, he took a different line from me. I have to disagree with him. He was focusing on the mindsets. I often hear this argument, mindsets. We are who we are, and we must get comfortable with who we are. It is impossible, we're not God, to change and re-engineer ourselves. But what we can change, and what is within our power, is to change and re-engineer the Constitution. A fraudulent Constitution cannot produce the genuine leaders that my friend Kaide is looking for. It can only produce its children tainted with fraud. So if you need genuine leaders and genuine leadership, you must first start with a genuine constitution. So if your constitution starts with a lie, as we've discussed today, it could only end up producing lies and deception because it needs lies to sustain itself. So let's stop looking for a Superman that is detribalized. Let us build the new relationship around the Nigerians as we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But if the ugly are predominating, look for its source, look for its cause. Look at your constitution. There's a provision in the constitution that we didn't discuss about political parties. It expressly prohibits a party that would actually be an expression of the will of, say, the Yoruba people or the Igbo people. If they decided that they wanted a Yoruba party, Constitution says you can't have that. A party cannot have an emblem or a manifesto that is advocating those nations, which are the true pillars of our existence, not the artificial constructs that the British brought, as somebody said, as their commercial enterprise. We have to go back to basics and rebuild from what we had that made our land attractive to these ones who came for their commercial advantage. I want to touch on the army because somebody touched on it in a comparison with America, where soldiers are not sent onto the streets against citizens. The Americans would never send their soldiers onto the street against their citizens. But our soldiers, from my reckoning, they only ever shoot our own people. What was the last war that they ever had against anybody else but their own people? That is the result of a fraudulent constitutional arrangement. And we cannot allow that situation to continue. They are really just the lethal arm of the police. They're there, all the weaponry, all the planes is really just facing inwards. And we must put an end to that fraud and grand deception. So I conclude at where I began. We do not have a constitution because we have yet to sit down without foreign interference to really come to a negotiated settlement, a compromise of our interests. The lawyers are ready to do the drafting. It's the political will to bring the nations together, to have a sensible dialogue and to come up with a compromise. But this is part of the process. We must understand where we are first before we can be clear as to where we're going from here. Erelu, thank you again. It's a great pleasure to be part of this discussion.